Hi, everybody. Again, this is Megan, and I have our guest here, Alex, and she is over in New Zealand, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
And it is, 5 a.m. over?
6 daylight saving now, so,
Okay.
far more palatable. That's okay.
Thank you for your willingness to get up early in the morning to come and talk to us or just have a conversation with me about all things kind of AI. So I'm going to have Alex introduce herself, but we met actually during a HR, Hacking HR conference. She was a speaker and she was talking about AI. And so I thought it'd be good to have her on and talk about it. So Alex, do you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. So my name's Alex Howieson. I'm an Australian and I live in New Zealand. I've been here 10 years. So I work for myself in a consultancy that looks at fractional HR, health, wellbeing and safety. And so part of the practice that we are engaging in at the moment is in AI, but also making sure that we are looking at all the ways that AI can be enhancing and empowering people in the workplace. And hence our really strong focus at the moment in inclusion when we're looking at setting frameworks up in AI. So I'm absolutely thrilled for this discussion today.
Good. And I know during the Hacking HR, a lot of the conversations around HR and AI, it kind of, for me, it comes across like people are kind of scared to approach it, even though AI has been around for God knows how long. But it feels like a scary topic in a lot of ways for a lot of people. But, I chimed into that conversation and be like, for the neurodiverse community, there's a lot of benefits to being able to access these additional supports. What do you think?
Yeah, sure. There sure is. And I think one of the points of difference that I think that we should be focusing on is how can a company benefit from, I think a lot of the narrative at the moment is how do companies benefit from the use of AI. Missing completely the benefits for people. And one of the points that we're trying to make and building a proposition around is how we can use AI and technology, but specifically AI in the way that generative AI works, to make sure that people have got a seat at the table. And with regards to inclusion and neurodiversity is a really natural place to start with that, from a perspective of somebody who is not in the neurodiverse family, but is inclusive of or has people in their teams. It's a great learning tool all the way through to not having to reinvent the wheel, but also through to somebody who may be trying to work out how they fit and how they can, I suppose, contribute to their workplace in the most productive way. And AI fits the bill right away in that place.
Right away. How have you seen it been implemented?
I think from the main part has been with regards to the start of the policy and framework. So when we look at how do we set up a workplace, some of the challenges that we've found with regards to inclusion from neurodiversity is sometimes just the physical working space. And what I've seen really effective in the use of AI in that area is assisting sort of the ways of working in how to collaborate in teams, making sure that you are setting up your physical facility and properties in a way that is inclusive. It gives people a voice, and I think that when we in one of my previous employers, we looked at things like lighting, quiet, noise reduction places. These are all things that were hard to articulate insofar as people said, I want a quieter place to work. Couldn't really articulate why. And when we were using AI as a tool, it was really cool to be able to use it in a team collaboration way.
Oh, that's cool. I wasn't even, so it sounds like what you're saying is that AI was used in order to be able to generate the ideas in order to make it spaces more inclusive.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
So really, a really interesting way of looking at all the ways that we can, and what was great about it is that we didn't have to do any training courses. We didn't have to have people outing themselves insofar as saying, actually, I don't want to be the only person or find myself the only person that finds these workplaces really quite stark, uninviting, and not productive for me. And so it opened up a conversation about how we can make a workplace more inviting as opposed to isolating someone in their home environment as well.
yeah.
And I think that was a really simplistic example of one way that I've seen it work really effectively.
I love that, because usually when I think about AI neurodiversity, I'm thinking about like how the neurodiverse person can be using AI. But what you're really talking about is how the non-neurodiverse people, or how just program developers and program designers and organizations that are looking to develop programs can utilize AI in order to be inclusive for everybody.
That's right. That's right. And I think that when you take that balance between the person who is seeking some support and framework from, somebody who is looking from a neurodiverse lens in their own practice at work and framework, it's hard doing things when you're by yourself. And and I think when there is far more of a welcoming viewpoint from everybody using AI in the lens of welcoming everyone into the work, into the place of work, into the work streams, and having that amazing ability to put your thought processes on the table, you've got a sort of dual purpose there. And that's what I've found being really effective, because I think nobody likes to, I don't know many people anyway, that like to be that sort of lone wolf in the start. And if you're already feeling like that you're not necessarily like everybody else, making sure some of those barriers are taken away really quickly by everybody normalising technology and the use of inclusion, it really starts that conversation in a far more psychological safe manner.
I was just going to say that it sounds like you're looking to create a psychologically safe environment for everybody. By tapping into AI, you can figure out ways to do that more creatively. I love that.
Yeah, and I think that the trick is integration, and I think that where we're really enjoying the practice with our clients with regards to using AI has been, we have some people, because we work in a contracting system in my own organisation, a couple of our internal contractors are neurodiverse, and one of the points of difference that they bring to the table is the fact that they have a different lens. Now, if they are in a larger environment being swallowed up, their voices aren't heard. So there's that point. The other is as a society, I think that now that we're seeing a lot more late diagnosis, for example, not that I really enjoy that word, frankly, but it's people becoming more aware and alive to where their gifts are and what their superpowers are. And then on the flip side of that, making sure that they have all the tools at their fingertips to be able to be their best selves all the time. Because, most people I know don't like feeling like they haven't performed or that they haven't been contributing. And when you look at the technology and tools that are available now, that's crazy. That shouldn't be happening to anyone, really.
It definitely should not. There's so many tools now, and the reality is the tools are just going to be more advanced and even more specific, and also to be more available for people. And so, the excuses are running out, right? So how to create work environments, like your excuses, that you're making are coming to an end.
Yeah. And so they should, because when we if you take us back sort of 20 years, when we think about sort of just general binary gender conversation at the time, people were arguing that you're taking 50% of the workforce away from the availability of their ideas. Now, as you exclude more and more of those people, we're really now only going to be, if you do the maths, if we aren't leveraging all of this technology across the entire spectrum of difference, we could be only focusing on the top 5 or 6% of people that meet a particular. I mean, that just doesn't even make sense. Most of the time, they're not even buying products that are, that the rest. This is where sort of a basic consumer mindset, customer mindset, should be coming in. Is that people are making informed decisions much more than they ever have before, and being the company that's at the cutting edge of making sure that they have everybody's ideas at the table are the ones that are going to win. That's for sure. So there's a huge commercial aspect to this as well.
Exactly. So if you're a business owner and you listen to this and listen to the replay, like if you want to be successful in business, you need to be able to access AI, and in a way to do that is, using AI in order to identify and ways that you can better support the employees that are working for you, and that includes the neurodiverse community. And so, some of the things that I have been thinking about in terms of how the ADHD and specific, or just neurodiverse in general, like can utilize AI. I mean, it could be anything from job searching and using ChatGPT in order to prompt us better understand what kind of jobs would be helpful for you based on your talents and your experiences and skills. Resume writing, getting you started. Also,
yeah.
And then, a lot of ADHDers also have really trouble with finances and money management. And so you can use AI to help you create a budget and to manage your finances. Working out your schedule for the day. Like if you're having challenges getting to work on time, or just trying to better plan and organize your day, you can use AI to help support that too. Kitchen and cooking. Like there's so many other ways that you can access the tool to help support your daily life. And then from the business perspective, like you can also use AI in order to better support your people. And that's the same thing when it comes to managers, right? Like managing and direct reports that have are diverse too. It's like, are you guys speaking the same language, and could you use a third party in order to help support that?
Yeah. I think one of the sort of real failings of a lot of sort of middle management particularly is this concept of sort of idea killing. And when you're not in a process of making sure that there's all the psychological safety parts of having a voice at the table and making sure that everybody has a turn in saying what they believe or putting some input into an idea, then there's all the lost opportunity. And I think the other part of being a manager is making sure that you aren't losing any opportunities. That's what innovation is. And when we look at the neurodiverse community, that is an absolute untapped resource, and AI is exactly the way to make sure that there's two parts to AI. I think if not controlled in a way in a workplace or any other setting, you could be down rabbit holes for centuries. You're absolutely right. You could do everything in it, and one of the parts of leadership is making sure that you're understanding all the different parts that AI can contribute, when it should be contributing and for what. And one of those just simple innovative brainstorming from a perspective of somebody who's not necessarily potentially comfortable in an open environment, whiteboarding, for example. What a fabulous way to prepare. If you sent out, what you're supposed to be doing, pre-reading, or what the topics are, being able to sort of plug it into AI and say, here are all my ideas about this topic. What we find is that from the neurodiverse community, and feedback from the neurodiverse community is that it starts to put it all together in something that makes a lot of sense to them, but also to others. So there is a how am I showing up and making sure that I'm really succinct and professional in the way that I show up, which is important to people. This is a real superpower tool, AI, to be able to say, oh, here is your top 10 points, making sure that you're prompting it correctly, of course, but what could have felt like quite an overwhelm can turn into, some of the best ideas at the table.
Exactly. Actually, I have this conversation a lot with my clients. It's like, how do I become more succinct? And this is a tool that can help you become more succinct. And you're right. Like, you just have a head full of ideas and they're just flowing. The ideas are flowing. And so how do you synthesize them in a way that other people can understand? And this is a powerful tool that you can do that too. Absolutely. Yeah. Does anybody that's currently watching have any questions? If not, we'll just keep on talking. I just wanted to invite people to ask us questions if they want to ask us questions. But no, this is a powerful conversation. Do you feel like organizations are really catching on?
No.
Or
and I think that's what it's really exciting to be in HR at the moment. I was just on a panel earlier with Hacking HR, and we were talking about the place of HR in AI, and what I think is really exciting is AI can sort of form a bit of a triangle. They can be the thought leaders and generators. They can be the advocacy people also, and making sure that there is an inclusion bent to what's happening, but then also set the table for the frameworks. This is an exceptionally exciting time. And I think whilst organisations are grappling with how do we use it, the best example I can think of is to grab 10 use cases with a group of people who are finding this really beneficial for their use in their daily work, but then all the way through to how that can translate into an organisational capacity. And you're sitting on a gold mine. I really do think so. It's just, it does need rules. It does need rules for people, and it needs some boundaries. And I mean that in the kindest way. So, as I said, we can make jokes. We could sit on AI all day. Now, to somebody that already feels quite overwhelmed in their thinking as it is, that's a pretty nasty place to find yourself. So I think it's making sure that we have good, clear training programs for people to say, look, here's AI, here's what you can use it for, and here's 5 examples of how to do that. And sort of limit that in terms of how you start. And once you've got that basic knowledge, it doesn't feel like, I can buy, 100 products and spend a fortune and not know where to even start.
Yeah, somebody just asked us a question. Which AI have you found more helpful? Gemini, ChatGPT, Microsoft, or what?
I think the first thing to look at is your operating system. So if you have, and what I mean by operating system, if you're a Google user, for example, in an organisation, or even just as yourself, attaching Claude or Gemini to Google, because that's what they're built for, is quite advantageous, because what it will do is it will look at everything you've ever written. So if you look at Microsoft also, who has the Copilot product, that does exactly the same. So if it's linked to your account, then it will go into your PowerPoint. It will go into all your apps that are across the Microsoft suite, and that's exceptionally powerful, because it starts to learn your voice, and it starts to learn how you're writing and what you're writing about. So that's a very good starting point. ChatGPT is excellent on its own, OpenAI. What I would suggest, though, if you are not working on an operating platform like what I've described, and are thinking of just downloading an app, playing around with a couple of the free apps is a great, affordable way to start to play. It's a bit like doom scrolling, though. So I think big word of warning here that you could spend hours on these things. So go in with a purpose, and maybe set yourself some time limits. That would be my sort of if you are just starting out.
Yes, use a timer because you can go down a rabbit hole really quickly, especially when you realize how much it actually can do, and then you just start asking it all sorts of questions.
Yeah. Then you're veering off almost away from the purpose that you were intending in some way. If you are intending for it to give you some framework,
right?
I think it does also. It will pull you back and say this looks like a new chat, and I think that's actually really helpful. And if you do get the paid versions, you are able to build your own GPT as well. So doing some short courses, that's where I started a couple of years ago, was starting on short courses, which you'll find for free on LinkedIn through Microsoft as an example. It will show some of those powerful, but I'm just trying to point out the more affordable options, because you can end up spending a lot of money if you are not entirely clear about what you want to use it for.
Yeah, and they have so many different AI apps for depending on what you're doing, right? So like if you're in photography, they have AI apps for that. If you're doing presentations, they have AI apps for that. And so you can definitely get down a rabbit hole really quickly, and then you can end up spending a whole lot of money because everybody wants you to pay for some types of subscription service, right? I generally use ChatGPT. I have not incorporated it into my other platforms, which is something for me to think about for my own business. And how to synthesize that, because what I do find, and I don't know if you have any advice about this, but even with ChatGPT, you know how you can keep doing new inquiries, but now I have a long list of inquiries on my left-hand side. So, and then when I'm going back, especially as somebody with ADHD, and I'm like, oh, I have this brand new idea and I want to build it out. But then that idea doesn't become interesting anymore in the moment. And so then you kind of forget about it and move on to another inquiry. But then 3 months later, you're like, oh, remember that idea that I had? I want to revisit that. And now I can't find it in the list of inquiries.
So I think when I was first learning, and I still can, because I love it. But what I have found really successful is because you can copy what you're doing. And have some sort of filing system. So I use GoodNotes, for example. That's just something I use, but you could use Notes in Microsoft or whatever it is that your operating system is, and copy and paste, sort of, here's my ideas. In some of them, in ChatGPT, I'm pretty sure you can file. So you can set up little files for yourself as well. So it's a good idea to, and that filing system can be as easy as August ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll always remember a place and time where you I thought about that a little while ago, and look at how you can sort of file that away for later. But that copy paste function is really helpful. The other thing is even if you lose it, you can go and regenerate it, and if using the same product, it will start to remember and pull things back from what you had used before.
Yeah, that's definitely one thing that I've appreciated about it, and it's little memories too. So I am trying to be more inclusive with the way that I do my hashtags, for example. So when I do my hashtags, if it's a start of a new word within the hashtag, it gets capitalized, and so that the screen readers and other things can read the information. Otherwise, for people that have visual issues or whatever, they can't really understand the hashtag by the way that it's written. And so, but it remembers that. So I'm like, because I told it 1 or 2 times, I said, listen, this is the way that I write hashtags. And so when it's generating or I'm asking for it to come up with some, then it always creates it in that same format, which is very helpful.
Oh, right. That's starting with a capital.
Yep. So every stuff is like ADHD Awareness Month, right? So ADHD, each letter will obviously be capitalized, but then the A in awareness will be capitalized, and then the M in month would also be capitalized, so that when the screen readers are reading it, they're reading the individual word.
Oh, what a gem. Thanks for that. I'm going to do that now. That makes a lot of sense too, doesn't it? I mean, these are the things by sharing on some, in these forums that you think, I wouldn't have thought of that. But that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Cool. Thank you. There you go.
You're welcome. Anybody else is listening that does hashtags on social media, make sure that you are capitalizing the first word in the hashtag.
Very cool.
To be more inclusive.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, there you go. See, we're all learning today. Brilliant.
Yes, it was something that I learned, and so you can. In the States, they have the American Disabilities Act, and so I did a training to become fluent and more fluent in the American Disabilities Act, and they had a training around how to be inclusive in web practices. And free. I can probably email it to you actually. It's free and available, and if people want to access it, just let me know. But it's a free training on how to create more inclusive practices when you're working on the internet.
Perfect. Yeah, I'd love that. That'd be great. That'd be great.
But going back to AI, that was actually a really good question. I don't know if anybody else had any other questions as well, because there are a lot of different types of AI tools. And I am, how do I frame it? Like, I am an advocate of AI and not fearful of it. Like, I recognize that it has, like, it can, people can take it to the extreme, but like with anything else, and it can be dangerous in a lot of ways, but it can also be extremely helpful. And, within my business, my practice, when I talk to people, I want people to be able to know how to effectively use it.
Yeah, and I think the main points that sort of are left unsaid, unfortunately, but I mean, don't put personal information in it.
Right.
When it says open AI, that means it's open. So that is open more than open Google. So don't be frightened of that. So you just don't put personal information in there. Don't put proprietary information in there if you're in a company. The way that you'd have to be thinking about it, for example, like if you take a company and say, I'm looking to recruit a senior executive in a chief financial officer's position for an organisation that's based in New York, that has 2,000 employees. They're in healthcare. This is what the word prompt is talking about. So it's making sure that I've not named anything there. Actually, it's very generic. But AI will go and look at all the large language models, which are being directed by me. So I don't have to mention a brand there at all. And that's the safest way to use AI. Photos and things like that is fine, because they're already out in the internet. But it's more around making sure you're not stepping foul of any company policies.
Speaking of prompts, do you have any suggestions on how people should prompt AI in order to get an inquiry that makes sense for them?
I think, and I think while you're practicing, if you're looking at doing a project, for example, it does help. I find it helps to have a Word document open, and you just burst all your ideas down on the Word document. So type away, with paragraphs, because it can be 10 pages long, it doesn't matter. Put lots of spaces in there, and then go and rearrange your thoughts into categories. So when you're looking at, because you'll always think of something. If you think about the example I gave of 2,000 people, your chief financial officer in New York, healthcare. As you get further down, you're going to think of a lot of different questions that you'd like to ask it. And so putting it in a Word document, you get the questions out without doing the prompts. So if you're putting it in Word or whatever it is that you can cut and paste from, I'm just using Word as an example, and you start with one part of it, then you see what it comes back with, and then you add, can you please add this part into it? Can you please add this part into it? And that's the best way to sort of feed it prompts as you're going along and seeing how it's developing itself. Remembering that AI is only supposed to augment a person, not replace them. So it's only as good as the information that's it's ever been fed. So making sure that your prompts give you enough time in between to think about whether or not what it's saying is reasonable. And as a professional, you will know that, because it's still, albeit that it's very smart, it can also be pretty silly as well. So, you know, it's just drawing from information that it's finding on the internet mostly. So, and you know by using Google that you don't believe everything that you read. So it's a bit in that space. But prompting I've found really helpful, having it somewhere else, and particularly if you're doing a large project. If you are in doing something very small, by all means go in and practice. It won't, thankfully, it won't, most products now are not accepting any hate speech or anything that has got to do with any offensive materials. So that's really, really good. So, but if you are being stopped by it, have a look at what you've written, because it might actually have prompted by one word. Like I used something to say, could you please put me together a nutrition plan that is sugar-free? But I put diet nutrition plan and it rejected it.
Oh, okay.
It had diet.
Oh, that's interesting.
So just have a look at what you've written and think of another word to put in its place. But it's trying, you know, and organisations are really trying to make sure that it doesn't become sort of off the leash, so to speak, which is I find really comforting.
Yeah, that is really good to know. One way that I try to use in terms of the prompts is that sometimes I have a trouble starting, right? And so I will tell AI what it is that I'm trying to do, but I don't ask them to produce it for me. What I ask them to do is to ask me a series of questions to help figure out my own thoughts. And so, like, what questions should I be answering so that I can answer, like, so I can develop something, right? And so it's like, what am I not thinking about? Like, what areas am I not thinking about? What am I not taking into consideration? Like, give me a list of those things, or prompt me with some questions. Like, you question me, AI, so that I can now generate my own thoughts about the subject and be able to string things together.
Yeah, it's quite a as a companion, AI is really helpful. I think what I'd warn people is just to say, please give me constructive feedback. Otherwise, it is going to be really nice to you. And if you are looking for feedback, you know, it might not give you straight. So that's, talk to it as if you are talking to a person. That would be my biggest advice here. Is, you know, please give me constructive, kind feedback. The audience I'm doing this for is this. This is how I would like to present myself. Thank you for that. This is the next part that I would like you to have a look at it. So it's maintaining that conversation as well with it. It's actually very cool.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk to me. Like, I don't necessarily need like the niceties or like the pleasantries. Like, I'm just like, speak to me bluntly. And so, like, be direct. And but so it's you're developing a relationship with it essentially.
Yeah.
And it's nice too. And so sometimes, like, I use it like because I need help, like, being able to describe like the tone that I'm using, or like if I want to communicate, like, this is the kind of people, like, this is the kind of person that I'm speaking with, this is the audience that I'm speaking with, like, what type of tone would be really appropriate? Like, can you give me an example of that tone, so that I can learn too?
Yeah. Yeah. And you might have thought, the other thing is asking it what it thinks. So I'm presenting to a boardroom full of executives on this particular whatever, will be a very different tone to I'm with a group of people in my workplace who I really who I admire, and we're innovating on these. So I would like to still, I'm professional, I'm in a professional environment, but friendly, for example. So and that's that part of that starting block. It gets you to the starting block. And what we have had some feedback from people from the neurodiverse community is the sometimes tone is challenging from a perspective of where they've been accused, for example, of having no EQ. You know, sort of that's you've got no EQ. And sort of the person's left wondering, saying, no, well, if I didn't care about you, I wouldn't have said it in the first place. You know, that sort of this, and so you're in this sort of communication quagmire of what just went on here, what on earth. Sometimes starting those conversations, if that's challenging for people, we've found people go on and say, I have been, and using AI as that companion, I've been described as having no EQ. Can you help me use some words which would connect me with my audience that looks like this? So you'd need to describe it in a better way that is authentic to me.
Yeah, I love that.
You know, and it's really, and I think that because of that directness in feedback, that some people are a bit frightened to give. Even though they're saying that the person's got no EQ, not necessarily to their face, so ironic, really, is that part to say, you know, try and help me with some friendlier words, and you know that has been a real game changer for some people, because AI will give them 5 different words to use. You know, and I thought that was a really interesting way. Firstly, trying to create some self-awareness where that's a real challenge for that individual.
Yeah, I've seen it also if there was a communication misunderstanding, right? And so some people say, this is what happens. Like, this person is really upset and I have no idea why.
Yeah.
Can you give me some ideas around like why somebody is upset about this particular scenario? Or is there another way to look at this where my brain is leaning towards the negative side? And so my takeaway is like, now I'm feeling really rejected, but what are some other ways that I could look at this particular situation that happens so that it's not leaning towards my negative?
Yeah.
So then I'm not feeling rejected anymore. And like, maybe I just need another perspective of the situation. And then, hey, AI, here's what happens. This is my takeaway, but what are some other potential takeaways that could have happened in that particular situation?
Yeah, exactly. It's a really good point. And I think that was part of the point that, you know, I was talking about a bit earlier around making sure that self-isolation doesn't start. You know, and that negative self-talk doesn't set in as normal, because that's not fair. And particularly with regards to some of that challenging sort of social interaction, AI can come and bring somebody right back from that. Just, you know, that not everybody, you know, things like I've seen prompts like, not everybody likes people to be blunt and direct.
Right.
And having that just said to you, you sort of go, oh, okay, it's not me necessarily. Hey, I can always do better, but it's not just me, you know. And I think that sort of feeling of understanding and acknowledgement and community can be quite powerful from AI.
Yeah, and it relieves a lot of stress too, if I'm being honest, because sometimes if you do like the blunt and direct communication like I do, but not everybody else does, right? But like trying to soften the language, like in thinking about softer language to communicate, to be received better, is like, it takes a lot of work. Like it takes a lot of work. If like if your mind and your brain doesn't lean towards soft communication, now if you're having impulse control, right? So like you're having an impulsive moment where you just want to blurt everything out. So now you need to stop, pause, go back and rethink, try to identify some additional language. And all of that takes time and can be really frustrating. And so, especially if you don't know what the language is that you need to be using. And so being able to go back and ask somebody that's not going to necessarily it's not going to have a negative impact on you, right? Like it's not, it's not your manager that you're going to and looking for this feedback, and they also now be judging you silently.
Yeah, and on the flip side of that, it's a great tool for managers to be able to enter in and say, can you help me understand what can I do around a particular team dynamic?
Mm-hmm.
And what are some workshop ideas, or what are some brainstorming ideas, or how can I make sure that I am including everybody into the conversations? It's a really, really cool and powerful tool for that.
Yeah,
and that's making sure that you're sharing that responsibility. And I'd encourage people to ask for that share as well. How can we learn this together?
Yeah, and as speaking of managers, it's like one of the questions, like how can I differentiate my management style in order to support the diverse people that I'm managing, right? And so like not everybody appreciates a certain type of management style. And so like how do I differentiate that? What do I need to learn in order to be able to best support an employee that is not responsive to this particular type of management style?
Yeah. I'm pretty firm on my views of leadership styles, and I think that your job is to make sure everyone's included. That's your job. It's not actually you left that the day that you became a manager is the day you sort of left being on the tools as such, and you were the person that should be including everybody. And I think that it should be part of every manager's training, specifically AI. I think now that we've got it as a tool, but it should be part of every manager's training to celebrate difference and understand why having that diverse range of people on your team is actually a true superpower. Mm-hmm. Then, and look, I'm not saying it's easy, but that's what you get paid for. With regards to what's that?
I think AI just celebrated that thought.
There you go. Perfect. It's better than my own background anyway. Hey, that's hilarious. But I think that it is around that, making sure that this is a really good tool for managers to make sure that they're aware of it. Mm-hmm. And for people to have trust is the only way you lead people. High trust environments, understanding what people's motivations are, caring about them, and having a psychological safe environment is the only way successful teams run. And so if you base everything on that, you should know that there is somebody in your team, or more now. We look at it now, there'll be more than one person that's facing some challenges that's causing them quite a lot of anxiety if it's unsaid, if it's left unsaid, and that's not fair. Mm-hmm. Everybody deserves to go to work and be included. So that's why we've got laws in place, but also there's just doing the right thing.
It is doing the right things. That's when people, you start to consider putting people on performance improvement plans. But, once you start to have that thought, like, can you also ask yourself, how have I not provided an inclusive work environment? What have I not done as a manager in order to make sure that this person feels supported enough and built a psychologically safe environment for this person to be able to do well?
Yep. And also, what have I missed? What have I missed out on? Mm-hmm. Because one of the parts that I've learned over a long time in being in people leadership is the neurodiverse community is bringing the innovation. So where are you getting that from if they're not there? Would be my question. And what are you missing out on when you don't include them? It just doesn't even make sense to me. And, you know, just as there are challenges with a lot of different people in life, get over it. Like work out how everybody can fit. You know what I mean?
I love it.
It's not. It's, you know, we it's almost like we try and make excuses about why someone's difficult rather than work out ways where people are bringing that innovation to the table. I mean, that is a leader's job now. And so the more people that hear messages like that, the more people are going to be thriving and bringing their full selves to work. That is what it actually means.
Yeah.
And AI is right there.
It's
I don't know, you know, it's quite simple. You know, it's just now a matter of saying it's right there, and get yourself educated to make sure you know how to use it properly. And B, if you are, you know, and I'd challenge that to our audience as well. Go and find the person that's writing the policy in your workplace, because there's writing policies to make sure you're not doing something illegal as an organisation. Put all that aside for a minute. Then there's learning how to use AI, but then there's also how we're going to use it for good. And I say that a lot. You know, how we're going to make sure that we leverage all the different parts of it to make sure that we are using it for good.
all right. We don't always necessarily need to warn people against we don't need to warn people from all of the problems that could potentially come from AI. We can be, instead of being reactive, let's be proactive, and also assume that our employees are going to be using it to help ensure that our organization is growing and that individuals are thriving.
Yeah. I think if you're a manager, I'd be very surprised if there's no one on your team already using it.
Oh,
so you know that's the other thing, and the get in front of that one, because as you know, we turn into where managers 15 years ago used to be terrified that everybody would be playing on Google all day. This is the new productivity suck. If you're not on top of it, so great way to play and learn all at one time is legitimizing its use in really positive ways.
Thank you so much for coming on and talking to me about this today. And I hope that those that are watching get a lot of really good info as well. You've given me a lot to think about.
I've really
as well
enjoyed it. Yeah, I've loved this collaboration for sure.
Thank you so much. And I'll let you know where the replay is going to be, and I can send it to you as well. But thank you for coming on. I know it is really early from where you are on your side of the world. And so I appreciate that. And everybody that is watching, if you have any other questions, go ahead and feel free to DM either of us, and we'll make sure that we get back to you. And I also have a link on my page where you can submit a question to me too, and we'll try to answer it on another live IG event as well. But also there's additional, just a little plug, what's coming up the rest of the week. Tomorrow we are talking about education and ADHD. And then later on this week, we're talking about therapy versus coaching. We have somebody else coming in to talk specifically about different types of therapy that could be helpful for the ADHDer. And then on Friday, we have an organizer coming in that is specifically talking about how to organize things with ADHD. And we will be talking about electronic organization. So I'm going to bring up this AI, how to organize all of our AI inquiries with our organizer as well this week. But the calendar is up on LinkedIn. It's on my Instagram, and we're finishing out the rest of the month too. So we're going to be having lives every day. So please tune in.
Perfect. Good luck with it. Excellent. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Thanks.
Bye. Oh, and also for those that are still on, I do have some group coaching available, spaces available on Thursday as well. So if you're interested in doing some group coaching for women with ADHD, those links are in my profile page or on Instagram, and you can go and you can sign up to do group coaching on Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern for the rest of the month. Those links are available too. But thank you so much for joining. I hope that you learned a lot.